purge, and he wants us to have a purge of anyone who supports the Make America Great movement. And he's trying to tell me that the Make America Great movement is a cult. Now, the whole time he's filming on his TikTok channel, I guess he's like me, he gets banned everywhere, but I'm banned on TikTok too. So I don't really know how I want to post this footage that I took today. I didn't do it live. I did it on my footage on my iPhone because I went to the Supreme Court. I didn't think anyone would really be there. I went there to just film my own footage about what happened in the Supreme Court today. And this gentleman and I got into a very serious discussion. And of course, he starts screaming at me that I'm racist, okay? And it just seemed like complete propaganda. So I've got this one BLM Antifa protester screaming at me that I'm racist in front of the Supreme Court. Then I have a gentleman who looks like a Fed. You know, he's really buff. He comes out of nowhere. He's got the backpack. He said he's BLM. Then he said he's the Black Libertarian movement. I mean, I don't even know what he was talking about. He kept on changing his story. But I said, are you a Fed? Who pays you to come here? And he starts laughing at me, of course, because that's what feds do. So the last time I encountered a man like this, spewing all this propaganda, it was in Los Angeles, California in fall 2020, and his name was John Sullivan. Now, let me just tell you about John Sullivan. He definitely was not BLM. He definitely was some type of Antifa, but honestly, he did get sentenced to years in federal prison. He still could be a Fed. If they are an asset to the feds, they can just throw you in jail, make sure that you just disappear from society. I did meet the alleged parents of John Sullivan in U.S. federal court a couple months ago. But even those parents, they said they adopted John Sullivan. They gave me all these stories. There's just so much to explain to you about what's really going on. And so I'm in Washington, D.C., and the highest level of news I can give you is that when I spot a Fed, I mean, this man that I met outside the Supreme Court today, it doesn't matter what his name is. I'm going to decide if I even want to release that. He never really gave me his first name or his last name, and he said he was live streaming on TikTok. But the bottom line is the stuff that he was saying was just so much propaganda. To call me racist, to say that the MAGA movement is a cult is total propaganda. But I'm really worried because he was only live streaming on TikTok. Now, why would you be live streaming specifically on TikTok unless you're trying to spew propaganda? And the last time that I've actually, interacted with this type of man, he ends up, making history for what he did and did not do, and that was John Sullivan. So these type of people really like to talk to me because their propaganda is so thick and so shocking. And he's basically saying that Biden is the greatest president that we've ever experienced, and that everything a Democrat would say, but it's just worse. It's just, there's so much propaganda coming out of this person's mouth. And that's really the only protesters that were in front of the Supreme Court, except that there was a group of people who were on a hunger strike, and they do it every year at the end of the Supreme Court because there's so much media, and they were protesting the death penalty, which I think is a very worthy cause. I'm a real Christian, and I find it hard to handle the death penalty, but that's a whole nother issue. They were actually saying that if President Trump gets elected again in November, that the death penalty will continue at a rapid rate. And I just didn't believe what they were saying. So the bottom line is that the U.S. Supreme Court was so active today, and it really takes me some time to really try to understand, what I'm really witnessing, because a lot of times it's propaganda. Like right now, I'm getting text messages of propaganda after propaganda. And I'm not even going to tell you the topic I'm talking about right now, but people who spew propaganda love to talk to me. So I'm just going to give you an example of something this man was saying in front of the Supreme Court, but I haven't decided how I want to post it yet, because what he was saying was just a lot of propaganda. He was wearing a shirt making fun of President Trump, and he was wearing a hat that said,
so the same thing should apply to Biden, right?
Make
And I think the
arrests of all the MAGA people. I mean, it's just never ending. Look, he said January 6th is an insurrection. This smells like a Fed. This acts like a Fed. Now, it may not be a direct Fed, but it could be an asset of a Fed.
Okay.
This is what I look for in
Do
Washington,
you want
D.C.
Trump in jail or you want Trump out of jail?
Well, he's not in jail, is he? Right? He's still running around. If you had 31 or 34 felonies, would you be in jail?
You think the felonies are real or fake?
Well, I believe they're real, right? I mean, they're real enough for Michael Cohen to go to jail, right?
So do you want Trump arrested on July 11th in New York City?
Well, so he was already arrested. I believe his sentencing is on the 11th, right?
I mean,
So
he's got the gear
placed in prison
to be
like
some
this.
type of asset for the Feds. Look what he's wearing. Look at his hat.
Given more time.
No,
He's
I
got
think
the
he should be in
perfect
jail.
clothing.
It's past
Listen to
jail
what he's
time.
saying. It's all
Past jail time.
propaganda.
And I know he's running
It's
for
all
president, but he's
leftist
not right now.
propaganda. Look
So
at
what do you
that.
think of Biden?
Biden's good. I'm cool with Biden.
I mean, this is crazy. This is what I found in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. He didn't show up until like 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
President history.
You
But
think Trump
listen to
is
this. They're
racist?
throwing the racist trash around.
no
Trump is
opinion.
not racist. I'm not racist.
Okay, so let's
This is
read your comment.
propaganda.
It says MAGA, right? My ass got
Make
arrested.
America great again.
Well, my ass got arrested if you read closely.
So this man thinks that
Biden's
everyone
son
who
got
is Make
arrested.
America Great
Biden's
Again
son
should be arrested. I mean, this is propaganda at the worst level.
Investigated too, right?
I don't think Trump is racist.
Of course you don't, because you're not black, right? But if you go ask most black people in this country, we know who racist. But anyway, time's up. Have a great one.
God bless you.
I mean, what am I supposed to do when I see people like this in front of the Supreme Court?
And he's here to do interviews with the mainstream media. Whoa, that guy looks like a
No
Fed.
one in the mainstream media was even talking to him. So this smells like a Fed, acts like a Fed.
In front of the US
Oh my gosh, is that Tommy Tatum?
Where'd that guy come from?
Tommy, can you hear us? Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Is there something wrong with the sound? Tommy Tatum is coming in and out. Can you hear us? Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. We'll come back to Tommy Tatum as soon as we can. I've got to text him and say that I can barely hear you. I want to show you another video of what I experienced today in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. This woman is actually on a hunger strike. You got to hear this story. She's protesting.
I witnessed my father getting stabbed to death 22 times, and I was also stabbed in the back and head, left for dead. The next 10 and a half years, I worked with the court system to get this man, James Barr Campbell, off of death row and in for life, in which I did on June 13th, 1997. It was a day of victory, which he got life, 4 consecutive life sentences for the rest of his life. I go around the world speaking my story of how I became from anger to forgiveness, and it's a big thing that happened to me, because I would go around the world speaking my story, but I said the words I forgive, but I didn't